Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Powered by the Monroe County Reporters. Here are your hosts, Jason Harwood and Jacob Litton.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Talking Grit. I'm Jason Harwood, and with me is Jacob Litton. You know, when Jacob and I started this podcast, last year, we knew it was going to be a lot of hard work, and we also knew it was going to be a lot of fun. But what we didn't anticipate, at least for me, what I didn't anticipate was all the cool people that we were going to meet along the way. And today's another example of that we love to recommend Ash Soden from the Roar of the Lions UK podcast. He's here. He is tired because it's 1 a.m. where he's at. It's also, he did a 3.5 hour podcast already. So, he is going to be well prepared for this show. So, Ash, thank you for, all the sacrifice you made today. And thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, guys. Obviously, listening to you guys for a while. Obviously, think first when Jeremy came on a while ago, started listening to you guys. It's an honor to be on here and obviously talk to you guys who are spreading the Honolulu cheer across the airwaves, just like us.
Yeah, it's crazy, when Jeremy jumped on and how gracious he are with their time, and you realize how busy everybody is. And I know you got to go to work tomorrow and stock those shelves, as you said, and I appreciate you being on. So we invited Ash on today because this is a big week. Training camp starts. It's like kind of snuck up on us here. The rookies report on the 16th, which is, from us recording, is just 2 days away from here. The vets will report on the 19th. And 2 weeks from Thursday, Jacob, is the first preseason game because we got that Hall of Fame game. So before we get all started with all that, Jacob, how you feeling? What's going on, man?
I'm good, man. It's finally here. Been waiting, since the crushing defeat to Washington. We just want the season to start already and finally getting some live football action coming up.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So um, I don't know where to start with this, but I'm gonna start. First thing I want to start with, I want to get your reaction, Jacob, and then I'm gonna throw it over to you, Ash. Ndamukong Suh retired this week, and officially retired. He didn't play last year, but he officially retired. So, Jacob, we kind of talked about this briefly, but what do you think his relationship with the Lions community is? What do you think his impression is? What do you think of, the fans think of him? I know what you and I kind of think, but I'm just kind of wondering what you think the general thought of him in the Lions community is.
I don't think that there is a general thought, where you can kind of feel the way the fan base is heavily leaning one way, heavily leaning the other. I mean, obviously, he was a dominant force when he was here. He was an important part of that team, when we had made the playoffs previously. And then he abandoned us. He left, went to Miami, he chased the money. And, I think people never really got over that. And of course, if there was rumors maybe he was going to come back last year when he, posted those pictures in Detroit. I think most people are probably over it and are, now that he's retired, are able to look back on those first couple of years that he was here with fondness. My question for you that I was thinking about, though, if, let's say, he does make the Hall of Fame, does he go in as a Lion?
I don't know. I mean, he didn't spend a ton of time with a lot of other teams. I mean, the Lions were definitely the longest, but he also didn't win a title with us, and that could be it. So, Ash, what do you think about that?
I'm kind of on the fence about it. So my co-host for today, Ants, he made the case for Sue to make it, saying with the average value thing and the Hall of Fame tracker that Pro Football Reference use, there's only 2 defensive tackles who are not in the Hall of Fame right now that have a higher Hall of Fame monitor score than Sue. The obvious one being Aaron Donald, who has a score that's nearly double what you need to get in. I think currently it's 104 on their tracker. It depends. Yeah, so for me, it depends. Like, I'm kind of unfortunate in a way that my fandom started pretty much as Sue was leaving. So I really saw like the last year or so of him. So I didn't really get to see like the Nebraska version of him when he came out of college. Just got people tweeting when he retired saying, "Oh yeah, the best college football player they've ever seen." I never unfortunately got to see that other than through highlights and seeing the early version, dominant version of him, the one got Aaron Rodgers really mad when he stamped on him, getting a couple of like those calls against him. The version of Sue that really made Tom Brady instantly say him as the scariest player to play against. But considering that he's won the Super Bowl ring with the Bucks and he's had that kind of impact for us, for Miami, and then obviously winning that ring with Tampa, I could see the case for him getting in there. But as I said on our podcast earlier, he'll probably have to wait a bit. There's probably, as soon as Donald becomes eligible, he's straight in with Sue. So probably have to wait a bit until everything else catches up, and then when the class is a bit weaker, maybe the defensive line, then maybe he can sneak in. But right now, it's probably going to have to wait 10, 20 years maybe.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ash. I don't see him hit the impression that he left, and just like you said, the stomping and stuff like that did not leave a good impression on a lot of the average NFL fan. I think that didn't get to see him play with the Lions. He was violent. When the Lions defensive coaches talk about playing violent, that was Ndamukong Suh. I mean, he didn't have any other way of playing violent. And who knows, if we'd had Dan Campbell as a coach, maybe he wouldn't have done those stupid mistakes, because he wouldn't have been as frustrated with the losing. Like, it's just, as a Lions fan, it felt like we were constantly getting stomped on. So I think Ndamukong just decided he's just going to stomp on other people for us. That's how I look at it, right, Jacob?
Right. No, he was a terror, just imposing his will on everybody week in and week out. And that, that's what he did in Nebraska. He, nearly won the Heisman Trophy as a defensive lineman, which is obviously not common. And that carried over when he was in Detroit. He really, he just killed it the whole time he was here. He had 5 seasons in Detroit, 4 All-Pro teams. But then he left for Miami. He kind of chased the money, and, his career, I don't know if it's necessarily that his career just kind of went downhill, or if his, he got paid and his work ethic went downhill. Right? It just kind of seems that way, that he just stopped, working as hard. Something changed right away. He only had 1 or 2 1 or 2 great seasons after it. He was always consistent just because of his physical play. But, you're right. He won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. I think he played with the Buccaneers for 3 years before he won the Super Bowl there. It's possible. I just feel like if he does get in the Hall of Fame, his best play is in Detroit, and that he would go in as a Lion. Mm-hmm. But like Ash said, if he's waiting long term, we also don't know where things are going to stand. He picks who he wants to go in as, right? What team he wants to be aligned with.
I'm not sure, because they just do the bus in the NFL. Like the MLB, when you go in, you get to choose your hat that you go in. So I don't know how it really works with the Hall of Fame, because they just have the bus and there's
maybe they just have the bus and it has the other. Yeah. But I don't know. I think you would count that one as a Lion in the Hall of Fame if he makes it, for sure.
I would think so, for sure. Like you said, his best years were with the Lions. Yeah. I just thought it was interesting. He hadn't played in a year. Just wanted to touch on that before we get to the bulk of this training camp. So first, we're going to start with the offense. We're going to start with quarterback like we always do. It's pretty cut and dry for QB1, Jared Goff. If you're watching Netflix right now, I just got through episode 1. Jacob tells me episode 4 is amazing. But my wife was out of town last week.
Ash, so did you watch the whole thing?
Yep, I've watched it twice over now. I watched it first when it came out before I went to work, and then I watched it over the weekend again. And Goff came across so well in it, to the point where I play flag football over here. So I've got friends who don't support the Lions, never really seen Goff that much, and they're coming up to me at training and saying, "You know what? I watched quarterback, and I see what you mean about Jared Goff now. I get it. He's the one that came across best in it." And I agreed. I said on our podcast, I went on a whole 5-minute diatribe about it, because Ant's only seen episode 1 as well. Just the stuff that came across, not just him but his wife as well. When Goff first came here, I was scared that Kristen would be another, Kelly, and instead Kristen came across so well in that documentary as well, with not only helping Jared with the play calls, but all the stuff she did with the WAGs, the wife and girlfriends of the team, and sitting there in the stands and watching the games and wincing when she sees Jared go down with the ankle injury, and then not being able to look when the Commanders loss happened. Just the whole Lions organization and the players that appeared and the coaches and Goff himself just came across so well in it.
Absolutely. I feel like it had the same effect when Hard Knocks followed the Lions around. it was like finally we got that publicity and everybody could see inside of the team and everybody got to love them like we do, And no, great point about Kristen, Jared Goff's wife. Just that actually was the hardest part for me watching the Washington thing. Like I knew it was coming, I wasn't looking forward to it, but being able to see the family's reaction and stuff like that, it's like took me back to that dark place for a minute. But
Yeah, we let's not go back to that dark place. It's not ready for it. Behind them, behind Jared Goff, is Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen. And to me, I'm gonna start with you, Ash. Do you think the number 2 job is handed to Hendon Hooker? Do you think Kyle Allen can supplant him? That's my first question I have for you.
I'll say right now, if we had to play the Packers tomorrow, Hooker would be QB2, but there's about 30% of me that's like, he might not get the job and he might not even make the roster. If Kyle Allen looks that good in preseason and just is able to operate the offense to higher standards, we might not keep Hendon around because it's coming up to the end of his rookie contract now. He's not exactly a young rookie anyway. He was drafted at like 24, 25. Like, you're getting close to that point where it's not a push up time for him to quit Tallahassee from Zombieland. Like, he's really got to show it now. We've been a couple of years in the system. We haven't really exposed him to too much of the limelight. I know we've got a couple of snaps against the Titans last year. Now's the time to really see it. Has he fully integrated in the offense? Is he able to pass on time? Some of the issues that we saw in preseason last year, where he was coming in a bit under pressure, in my opinion, though obviously the offensive line in front of him didn't help. Are those gone away? Can we trust him to come in and steer the ship, make sure it doesn't sink if anything happens to Jared? Obviously, touch wood that it doesn't. I think it can, because we saw flashes of it with Tennessee. We just need to see it now in the NFL setting with these NFL receivers against NFL players, because if not, we're at the point now where we need a consistent backup QB we can trust. And if that's not Hendon, we need to look elsewhere to find out, because we need to make sure that we are consistently staying a Super Bowl contending team if anything happens to our QB1.
Mm-hmm. Where are you at with this, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of Hendon Hooker in the preseason, and I don't know. I mean, I think there's a fine line between how much is too much what he's showing out there, because I also think if he does come out and look really good, that's also kind of a negative thing, as fans towards us, because I think he could be trade bait if he looks good enough. Some team may want to come out here and grab him, and then we're going to move on. I didn't like the Kyle Allen signing right from the get-go. I know they did not really offer him. There's not a whole lot guaranteed on that contract. They could cut him and just kind of, move on, whatever. I like Hendon Hooker. I want Hendon Hooker to be the backup, but this shows me that I don't know, maybe they want to light a little bit of a fire underneath Hendon Hooker, bringing another veteran around to help him develop, maybe is what's on their mind. This one's hard for me to read, but if I had to guess, I would still say it's Goff and Hooker. My question is, do they keep Allen on the team as a third roster spot? Do we go practice squad route like that? Because you're not going to keep Hendon Hooker on the practice squad. I think he's more likely to be traded than cut. But this one's tough for me, Jason. Where's your head at here?
Yeah, I would say Ash is right on. The season starts tomorrow. Hendon Hooker's your number 2. I personally, for me, like if we have to bring him in, I like that he has his legs. That is something that if a team's practicing for Jared Goff all week, and then for some reason Hendon has to come in, that's enough switch that it would be okay. But now if that has to last like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks where everyone knows that that's coming, that makes it a little more difficult. And so Hendon's going to have to show something this preseason. I know it's difficult. Ash had the great point of, he's coming in with the backup offensive line. He's not going to have his top receivers. So how much can you show? But what he needs to show the coaching staff is that he can make the proper reads and make the right call. So if he's in there with the starters, he knows where the ball goes. So that's what they're going to be looking at. So the stats and all that, from us fans looking at that, be like, oh, he was 12 for 24. That ain't gonna cut it. Well, if we had 5 or 6 drops from undrafted free agents in there, something like that, those all go into play. So the coaching staff's going to look is he going with the ball? Is he showing the progression from last year? Is the ball going to the right spot? We'll see. What I'm really curious are when Jeremy and all, Jeremy Reisman, Eric and all them get into training camp, How is he looking in practice? Does his passes look sharp? Because Jacob, when you and I went to training camp, Hendon Hooker made some really, really nice passes. Like I was super impressed with it. He just needs to show it consistently.
Absolutely. I mean, he looked really, really good during the almost entire practice. And then we saw the 2-minute drill there at the end, and there came the mistake, and he threw a pick six right on the goal line. It's like, man, that's the kind of stuff that just has to be cleaned up. And it's kind of do or die for him right now. Like Ash said, he's already, he's not typical for someone that was drafted in 2023. He's old, and I'm sure Hennon's wanting to get his shot somewhere. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out.
Yep, I agree. Is there any other questions you guys have at quarterback?
How much does Kyle Allen actually play? Do they just let Kyle Allen play the whole Hall of Fame game? Do they actually let Hendon play? I mean, Hendon needs these reps, right? But it's like, how much are you, is it 50-50 or you're going half and half? Like what, what's the game plan here? What's the purpose?
That'll be an interesting thing that comes out. What do you anticipate? Who, if you had to bet right now, Ash, who starts the Hall of Fame game?
It would probably be Hendon for me just because he needs the reps. But I'm scared it will be last preseason where we had with Hendon and it was Tim Boyle, where one would start one game and get one half and then sub the other one in. And then the next game, it would just be the other one starting. So like you'd start one with Tim Boyle, one with Hendon, and you didn't really get any rhythm because one would be with the second team, one with the third team. So I want Hendon to start all the preseason games he can. And then Kyle Allen come in for the second half, last quarter, if we can. Just get Hendon as many reps as you can in his system, because how else we're going to see? Because Kyle Allen, we kind of know what you're getting from him. He's a 5 out of 10 QB. He can maybe come in and save a drive, like kind of how Teddy did last year. But obviously, pretty easy
Just
to
hand the ball to
JMO
JMO.
and end around. Yeah, exactly. He can do that. We need to see what Hendon can do in a prolonged space. Can he be the guy that, can he last a game or two as Jared might be overcoming an ankle injury or something? But again, it doesn't happen. We need to see that now. So for me, Hendon's got to start all 4 of the games, get him as many reps as he can, and then if he's getting tired, if it's the fourth quarter and with up big or down big, then you put in Kyle, because you're not really going to get much out of playing Kyle that much other than getting him reps in the system. It's Hendon that needs all the reps for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. It just, if you start seeing Kyle Allen more, that's kind of scary, because that means they want to see. It could mean 2 things. They've seen enough from Hendon, but like you said, they're going to want to give him as much reps as they have. He needs more in-game experience, because even when he came up in mop-up duty last year against the Titans and Jaguars, he didn't look that great in those. But again, he's coming in with backup players, but you would like to see at least a couple first downs. He had trouble even getting the first downs, which is scary to think if that were to happen in a real game. All right, let's move on to the next position, running back. This is another one that's pretty clear cut. You got Dave Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs at the top. Craig Reynolds, Sianovaki. I don't know how to pronounce these last 2 names. Kyle Roshaw, Anthony Tyus, I know how to pronounce, but Kyle, do you know how to pronounce it?
I think it's Robishaw.
Is it Roshaw? Okay.
Robishaw, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to ask the Brit how to pronounce it. Okay. All right. Jacob, who starts the game this year? Is it Jahmyr or is it going to be David?
You talking about regular season?
Yeah. Who do you think?
Yeah, we've talked about this a few times. I think that the tides have turned to where they're going to let Gibbs start with the ball. Mm-hmm. I would not be opposed to them doing the same thing they did last year and letting Montgomery have the first drive. I like, that they're switching on drives for the most part and not like 2 plays in, 2 plays out. That's a good thing. I hope they keep doing that. It doesn't matter to me who starts, but I do feel like they're probably going to let Jahmyr, get more snaps and more touches, and therefore he's probably going to be the one that starts the game, in my opinion. But you can't go wrong either way.
No. What about you, Ash?
I probably do think it'll be still Monty on the first couple of drives, because as you kind of alluded to, the fact that we did it start, it's just to sort of soften up the defensive line a bit, running between the tackles, get them a bit shaken up. Then you suddenly hit them with Gibbs, and you have that sort of change up with them. I think they'll probably continue with that, which will, obviously the first couple of weeks we'll get all the fancy football experts crying into their beers again, like, oh, why aren't the Lions playing Jameer Gibbs? He was so good, all of this, as if they don't see the fact that part of the reason Gibbs was so good throughout the whole last season is because we had Monty as the change-up. We were splitting carries with them, keeping them both fresh, using them in the kind of right ways for the most part. Obviously, Benedict Johnson did Benedict Johnson things a couple of times, running the ball was working so well. Week 2, let's start throwing the ball. That's by the by. But yeah, for me, it's Monty will probably start most of the games if he's healthy, soften up the defenses, then you hit him with the change up with Gibbs.
All right. So Pride Detroit put an article out about Jameer Gibbs possibly lining up out wide more. I'm sure you've read that. Ash, what's your impressions on that? Do you think it's going to happen this year? And if so, are you excited about it?
I definitely think it's going to happen more just because it's something that it'll be a nice new wrinkle to have in the offense. Like, we have the best running back stable in the league. I don't care what PFF said, putting the Ravens above us. I didn't understand that. You've got 2 really damn good, really running backs. And the thing about Gibbs is, that's been introduced us, is the receiving. You've got to remember when he came out of Alabama, not only was he their leading rusher, he was also their leading receiver that year. Like, this is a guy that can catch the ball, can run receiver routes when he's asked to, just really wasn't asked too much in our offense. So having those 2 running back sets in, flexing Gibbs out into the slot outright, getting him to run those kind of routes, gives us a new flavor in the offense. And the same with Monty. Monty, I think, according to Al Carsten, 2nd highest receiving success rate of any running back over the past couple of years. So it's not only something we can do with Gibbs. We showed it with Gibbs a couple of times, and then when teams start picking up on that and having a linebacker or safety follow Gibbs, suddenly you put Gibbs back into the backfield, flex that Monty, and teams won't know what to do. Like, okay, what's going on here? And Monty will get reps. So not only is it something that could help with Gibbs, it'll be something that'd been very nice to help with Monty. So if I do start seeing that in the games, I'm going to be damn excited. And then obviously, Eric will probably be very excited when we start doing that flexing back in and getting Gibbs running Texas routes. Like, we'll probably be able to hear
Yep.
Eric's squeals of glee all the way over the Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you hoping for, Jacob? You hoping there's more? He's out wide more.
Yes, we've talked about, like, I love the idea not just of him being out wide, but I love the idea of them both being on the field at the same time. I like, the different motion that you can use. They could both start out in the backfield. One of them motions out wide. You could, there's just so many different things that you can do. And just the fact that Gibbs would be out wide, somebody, there's going to be a mismatch somewhere. Do you put the nickel over there? How many corners do they have back there? If they do have to spread all their corners out, or if they move a linebacker out there, well, now you've got a mismatch, with Gibbs. You also have the box is going to be lighter now. So you could just hand it off to Montgomery. There's one less person you got to block. There's just so many possibilities with having them both on the field. And it's something that I definitely, I thought they should have utilized that last year. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that this year. I did see when they posted that, I think it was Kirby and somebody else had commented and said this is fake news.
I didn't see that.
So that's kind of like leading me, like, I don't know if that was some sort of misdirection or if they took whatever, because it was an interview that Jameer had, and he had said something about it, maybe seeing out wide more, or whatever he had said, and then people took that and ran with it. So now I don't know what to believe. I don't know if this is really, if that's really happening, if he wasn't supposed to say anything about it, or
Yeah, we'll find out soon. I mean, we'll find out when the reporters get to practice, and I mean, what they can and can't tell us, but a couple weeks we'll be at practice ourselves, so we'll see if they're actually trying it. But what I'm excited about, if they do is the screen game that they can run off this. I mean, both those guys can make the first person miss. So man, you get those misdirections. You even run a double screen where Shamir's on one side, Dave Montgomery. They both are excellent pass catchers. They both can make the first guy miss. Their screen game is already like really, really good. Having them both on the field, I like the options that give us, depending on what the defense shows us. If they start playing nickel and more dime, then those mismatches don't happen. If they're playing base and they got extra linebackers out there, that is when you bring that out there. So we'll see. I want to see it happen in week 2 though, when Ben Johnson against the Bears, just to see get confused. I want to confuse that defense.
Let's hand it to Montgomery and have him throw it to Gibbs.
I'm all about
there
it.
You go.
Now
he's already thrown it to Laporta, so he's already
right.
Former quarterback.
He's got the arm.
Do it. Yeah, he can do it. I'm all about it. All right. Is there Vaki is the guy that is the wild card of this group who I want to see have the ball more. Having the more preseason games is gonna be nice because we're gonna be able to see this guy. Um, yeah. Ash, are you in the same ilk that you want to see Vaki? I see you shaking your head, so I'm thinking yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm pretty high on Barkley. I was high on him when we drafted him last year, mostly because of special teams. Like people who listen to the podcast know how much we love our special teams. I even have a Hogan Hatton jersey hanging up about 5 feet away from me in my wardrobe.
Oh,
That's how much we love it. I think I'm the only person outside of Hogan Hatton's family that owns one of his jerseys. It's hilarious. But we had this discussion. I had this discussion with Vance. I want to see more from Barkley because I want to see if we can hit on that upside. Because as much as I love Craig Reynolds and appreciate what he's done for the team, I think we've reached his ceiling. We know what we're getting from him. If you block him 4 yards, he will get you 4 yards. If you block him 1 yard, he will get you 1 yard. We know we can do the kick returns, Craig, but it's time to see if Varkey or one of the UDFAs in Nancy Tyres and Carl Robichaux, if we can get something that's just got a bit of a higher ceiling, because that's what we need to hit out now. We've got that solid floor of a solid 1-2. It's time to see if we can get more explosive stuff behind them to really come in and be change of backs, change of pace. Because as much as Gibbs is one of the fastest players in the league, I think he's the only one to reach above 22 miles per hour on a carry last season on his 70-yard touchdown. See if we can get more of that speed, because as we've seen with JMO this year, receiver, the Khalif before as well, speed kills in the NFL. If you make one guy miss and you're in the open field, go. So Craig can't really do that as much as I love Craig though, especially for the block he laid for Amon-Ra last year in Tampa Bay. Like I voted for that for the player of the season in our Broad Lines awards that season. And I drew it up and everything. Craig is a good running back 3-4. Let's see if we can get Varkey to go there, get a UDFA in, and then Craig can either be on the practice squad as someone you can call up as a reliable option, or he can go elsewhere for a starting job, because he's not going to get that here. He's not overtaking Monty. He's not overtaking Gibbs. Let's see if we can get something better behind him than the solid 6 out of 10 that Craig can be. Let's see if we can get 7 and 8 to 10 behind him and really push that running back room forward.
Yep. I know I'm the Vaki guy of us too, Jacob. But are you curious at all to see what he can bring to us?
I am, just because in a perfect world, he would show more at running back. He would be getting better. Obviously, he's explosive. He's fast. Is he able to run the ball in between the tackles? Is he able to, carry? Craig is just a better running back than Vaki is right now. That's not to say that Vaki's not a better athlete and that he's not faster, because he is. So this is kind of one of those things I'm sure he's been working at in the offseason. Is this when he overtakes Craig Reynolds? And then if he does, that becomes, Craig is then on the chopping block. He's not showing as much value on special teams that Vaki is. I also think for the first, in the Hall of Fame game, especially, I don't know how much we're going to see out of them, because, typically you don't want to risk injury or anything like that. How much do we let these undrafted free agents carry the ball in the first, Robichaux and Tyus? I don't know. I mean, do we see a lot of Vaki? In a perfect world, we want to see a lot out of him, maybe the entire first half, let him get, 10 carries or something like that. I just don't know if that's going to happen either.
I think the risk you run with you want Vaki to get as many carries as a running back just to get that experience. The issue is that he is so valuable on special teams that you're going to risk that. It's a risk benefit thing. At some point he needs to get those carries as a running back, and if you want him to overtake Craig, that's what he's going to have to have. He's going to have in-game reps against real competition to be able to get that. But you're going to risk injury. The Lions have to weigh that risk reward. I would be okay. You got to give him the carries. I mean, you can't. The Lions don't play scared. I don't think they're going to play scared, but we'll see how it goes. What do you think, Ash? You think he's gonna start it right out? We know we got in Craig, right? So we need to see it from Vaki.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Like Craig probably come in and be sort of the Monty role, the power back, the goal line back. But I want to see Vaki at least get the vast majority of the carries in the first half, and then maybe look at the UDFA, see what we got there. But yeah, it's just I love the special teams value. That's going to keep him on the roster. I think at least the hot entire his rookie contract, he could easily turn out to be the next Matthew Slater for us, what Matthew Slater was for the Patriots, perennial Pro Bowler as a special teams. Let's see if we can get more out. Let's see if we can unlock that running back potential he's got there. Because you saw flashes a bit of Utah. I know obviously barely played any of it, converted from safety to running back there and only got like 50 carries. But you saw enough there that does have the sort of body frame to run between the tackles. He's got the speed to run outside zone and get into the open field and make people miss. Let's see if he has learned that running back stuff, which is the stuff like properly reading your gaps, the pass protection, which is always the big thing for us. We've seen running backs rise and fall on that. Jamar Jefferson, one of the sort of Hall of Fame guys for our podcast, and who does the podcast with me, was really big on him, scouted him from Oregon State, really loved him. But unfortunately, pass protection and special teams never got there, so now he's on the practice squad all the time. Let's see if we can get the opposite out of Varkey. We've got the special teams there, let's get the pass protections, get the running back stuff down, and then hopefully get that kind of running back free that we had with Justin Jackson a couple of years ago, who was great at special teams and could do 10, 15 carries in the game as well. That's perfect then, because then you take more weight off one team, more weight off Gibbs, keeping them fresh. As then when we get to the playoffs, they're still at 80, 90% capacity, and you can actually blitz people. We did with Monty at the end of the Rams game, just run them and absolutely destroy them. Keeping them fresh for that, with having a three-headed monster now running back. It's better than two heads always, three heads always better than two.
Well, Vaki also, we really even talked about us three right here. He could catch the ball too out of the backfield, and I think that it's not something that we've seen Craig do. So that's just an additional option. So I think by the end of the year, yeah, you're going to see. We're hoping that Vaki's made that jump and just made being able to do that. Dave Phipp had talked about in his press conference earlier this year that the league's not in a development mode. They need help now. But Vaki's one of those guys that's helping you on special teams, so we're going to be able to develop him at running back. So hopefully that happens this year, and I'd like to see it because he seems like a cool guy, and I just, I love to see those guys succeed. All right, let's move to wide receiver, where our top is set, right? I mean, we know the starting lineup of these wide receivers, right? So outside of an injury, there's going to be no surprises here. We got Amon-Ra J-Mo at the top. You got Tim Patrick Khalif right there. And then Tesla, that's the guy we're probably going to be focused in this talk about because that is the wild card in this. Like, where are they going to put him? You got also that we're going to see a trade gap. You got Tom Kennedy. We got our draft pick, late draft pick, Dominic Lovett. Then you got the undrafted free agents. You got Meeks, who, he's going to bring in Z, right? He's going to bring in Zadarius, right? He's going to bring in his relative. And then we got Ronnie Bell, Malik Taylor, and then Jacoby Keeney James. Those are the guys that kind of round out the bottom of the lineup. Probably not going to make any waves of making this roster, but we'll see how they do. They're going to have to show in special teams. They're going to have to do something to be able to make any, to get on the practice squad with a chance of being called up. So, Jacob, Tesla is your guy that you're looking at. What are you looking for? What do you want to hear when we get the first reports out? What are you hoping to hear about Tesla?
Oh, what am I hoping to hear? How about just good things? How about consistency? Not getting lost, not dropping the ball. He was drafted much higher than anybody thought he was going to be. So the pressure is going to be on him to perform, I think, in the regular season. Not so much in the preseason here, but, just somebody else that's going to benefit from having these 4 preseason games, somebody that we're going to see game action probably a lot and early. Same for Lovett. This one is an interesting battle, if you want to call it a battle, because I think that this is pretty much set, like you kind of alluded to already. I don't know for these undrafted guys, and also for Lovett, I don't know that there's a spot for any of them because it just seems like these guys are just predetermined. The only one that may, maybe on the outside looking in would be Khalif. And then, you'd have to see something out of a, kick returner and everything like that too. Ronnie Bell is a sleeper. I have no idea where they're going to line up Lovett and how he's going to look and everything. So, this is just one of those things that makes training camp interesting now that we're doing the podcast and that we're in it more, is that we are following these stories. We want to see where they line up in practice, way more invested in it than we were in before. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's nothing specifically that I'm looking, other than just not dropping the ball, I think would be the only thing. The only cause for concern is when these drops happen. And a lot of times with rookie receivers, that's the first thing that stands out is when they start dropping the ball, they start getting in their head, they start, having more drops.
Yep. What about you, Ash? I I don't know your opinion on Tesla. So first, let's start there. So I got an impression of what you think of the guy, and then we'll go to what what you're looking for.
So I was, well, kind of fortunate to scout him a bit for the podcast before we drafted him and then looked at him again after we got him. I can see why we traded up for him. He's got all the physical tools and the sort of build to be a prototypical X in our scheme and in the league. It's just the way that he was used at Arkansas was basically as a move tight end. He was basically their version of Cole Pitts. But I saw in the tape, especially I think it was the game against Ole Miss, the kind of routes I'm looking for from my X receivers. So the one that I've nicknamed on our podcast the Josh Reynolds route. So your 15-yard dig route that we saw Josh Reynolds run a lot. Tim Patrick run last year. I think they got the Commanders also ran it to beat the Philadelphia Eagles at the end of the year. They got Zacchaeus, who's now unfortunately in Chicago, to run that route along the back of the end zone. Jalen Daniels hit him. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles. That's the kind of routes I'm looking for. Extra run, and I saw a couple from Tesla, and he can run them in the same way that guys who went much higher in the draft, such as Jaden Higgins and Trey Harris, who I would have thought we were seeing in preseason, but is now holding out, so maybe not. They're the kind of routes that they were running a lot more as an X on out wide, and will get hitting. Tesla was doing that from the slot, so hope to see a couple of those routes, but from that sort of wide alignments. The concentration drops, yeah, because I think there was one rep for Arkansas where such an easy ball just fired into him. All it to do was hold in the breadbasket and he dropped it. It was a concentration drops, clearing them up and just getting the route tree down. Because if we can get that, if we can learn under Tim Patrick for this year and then going into next year, we've got him starting at the X, Jamer starting at the Z, and then Amon on the slot. That's probably the best wide receiver trio in the league. Like that used to be the Bengals a couple of years ago with Chase, Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. We could have our own version of that, which will really help Jared Goff. So as I'm looking for them, I actually think that Jacoby James is the one I'm really watching out for, though. Like he's got the speed to be a future replacement for Khalif. So while he probably won't crack the 53 this year, if I see enough from him from preseason, keep him around on the practice squad, he's got special teams experience and the speed to be our Khalif next year. So that's what I'm definitely keeping an eye out in the preseason games, how he's used on special teams and on the offense, because that could be a sneaky little tell for next year what our plans are with Khalif when his contract runs down. Because obviously we've folded up his contract, so it ends at the end of this season. Mm-hmm. That could be a little sneaky pointer to what our plan is there.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up because that is something that a lot of us, a lot people aren't looking ahead to next year because we're focused on this year. But Khalif he's been a heart of this team and on special teams. And if this could be his last year, we're gonna have to find someone that can play that. I mean, he's reliable kick returner, obviously punt returner. He's very good at. So that's an interesting point that you're looking at there for Tesla. I'm with you, Jacob. I want to see consistency, and I just want to see the praise of the coach. Like that's all you're going to hear that in a lot of the press conferences. People are going to ask questions about him, and I want to hear the words that they use and the tone that they use. Like he appears to be a hard worker. He's obviously grateful to be a Detroit Lion, so he's going to love being there. I just want to see him be able to learn. He's got to learn a whole new route tree, like Ash says. He's not used to press, and that's one thing that he struggled with. And so they're gonna have him out there getting pressed. I know that the corners are going to be out there, and they're probably going to be coached to press this guy to get him used to that. He's a big guy. He seems to be if he could just utilize his body to get around that, he'd be awesome as an X. He's got the prototypical size, speed, and he's got the hands. So I hope that he develops into that. For Brad Holmes, I'm hoping he does too, just because that way people won't look at that what he gave up to get him, because that's going to be a big talking point. Because when we get down to defensive line, we're going to talk about Broderick Martin, and that's a similar type thing. Gave up a lot to get him, and he hasn't shown much. And we wouldn't be talking about Broderick Martin if he was drafted in the 5th or 6th round, but because he was drafted in the 3rd round, he's going to get mentioned. Same thing with Tesla. If he slips the 5th round, we're not going to, we're going to hope that he does good, but it's not going to be a big talking point. It's going to be a talking point now until we know we got either he's a bust or we got something with him. I like his attitude. I'm hoping that he's really successful. Obviously, it's a betterment for the Lions, but I just like the kid in general. So I'm hoping that he shows something out on the field. It'll be awesome to be able to be out there and watch him play. Because it's just like with the preseason stuff like that, you could just focus on that during the tape to see, because that even if he's not catching the ball, is he breaking out of a jam? Is he getting open? Is he in the right spot? Those type of things. That's what I'll be looking forward to. And that, like Jacob said earlier, before the podcast, I didn't have it that much invested in it, but now I got all this extra little tidbits to look for. So I'm looking forward to that. Anything else with the wide receivers you guys want to hit on, or we're gonna move on to tight ends?
No, I'm good.
All right, tight ends. This is another one that's pretty cut and dry at the top, right? You got Sam Laporta, Brock Wright. However, for tight end 3, you got Kenny Yeboah and Shane Zylstra right on the roster right now. Now they could add during, they could add at some point in the training camp to get another tight end in here. But right now, 1 and 2, we know where they're at. Kenny Yeboah, more blocking from what I understand. Shane Zylstra is more of a receiving tight end. So we'll see who would make the roster. But any thoughts on any of that tight end stuff that's hit you, Ash?
So I haven't been the biggest fan of James Shilsher, to be honest, this couple of years, but somehow he's always expected to prove me wrong. Because for me, as I mentioned, just with the way that Tesla was used at Arkansas, that's basically what Shane Shilsher's built for. He's a wide receiver in a tight end's body. The run blocking has been there, but not to a high extent. But he does enough special teams and receiving to stick around as that tight end 3 and hold off all the threats that have come for his job the past couple of years, like James Mitchell, who obviously we drafted coming off the ACL tear, first rookie season, caught everything, but then just never got it together in second and third season, and now he's down in Charlotte playing for the Carolina Panthers. So bringing in Yeboah to sort of push Silstra as that more blocking tight end build. Obviously knows Morton a bit from their time in New York. So I think Yeboah was drafted just as Morton was leaving, so he's probably got a bit of a hand there and understanding how Yeboah plays. It'll be interesting about to see in preseason, because again, we won't see Laporta probably, we probably won't see Wright. So Yeboah, Zylstra, and then the sort of 2 DFAs in Deal and Zach Orton will probably get a lot of run in this. And again, unlike with QB, won't be surprised if Zylstra starts the Hall of Fame game against the Chargers, and then come week 1 of the preseason against the Atlanta Falcons, it's Yeboah that starts. Give them both a half each, see who plays better, and then make the decision that way. Because right now, Zylstra's probably got the leg up being the veteran in the room in terms of knowing the scheme and the team. But I won't be surprised if when it comes down to cut down days to 53, it's Yeboah who's tight end 3 and Zylstra sitting on the practice squad.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, no, I actually agree. I mean, there's also Zylstra, the veteran, right? Zylstra also did not make the initial 53 last year. Like, they've already cut him before. So, I mean, the spot's not really guaranteed for him. I have not, seen much out of Yeboah. So it's going to be an important preseason for him. This is another one where it's like, okay, Laporta and Brock Wright are guaranteed spots. How much do we really need to see out of them in the preseason? Especially with Laporta having the injury and everything last year. Like, this is just going to be kind of cruising through the preseason games for Laporta anyway. So yeah, I want to see Yeboah. I want to see Zylstra. I actually want to see these undrafted guys too. Let's see a fight. Let's see special teams value, I guess, as a tight end too, and see what we're dealing with here, because it's wide open for me. And I would not be able to put money on any of these guys as to who's going to be the third tight end.
Yeah. My read is Yeboah is going to be tight end 3, because I think Shane Zylstra will make a practice squad. So if you're just playing the odds of, who are we going to be able to keep on this roster, I would say it's probably going to, Zylstra is probably more likely to just be able to make that. And then it's nice because you could bring him up if there is an injury. He's already got the familiarity. He could do it. I'm just excited to have a healthy Sam Laporta going into training camp, because 2 years ago, his rookie year, all the reports came out like this guy is just showing out at training camp. This is a star. Last year, it was very silent. He was coming off the injury, and it was just like sometimes you don't know when these stars are doing well, because we skip over like Aiden Hutchinson and Amon Ra because we expect them to do well. But we didn't hear anything about Sam. And frankly, when we were out there, Jacob, I don't even know if he was out there in training camp the day that we were out there, because I don't remember seeing him at all. Well, I'm hoping he flashes in training camp this year, and I'm hoping to hear that because that'll give me a great feeling going into week 1 that we know we got Sam Laporta, of a healthy Sam Laporta. When we were on, Jacob and I were on the Pride of Detroit with Miko, we talked about the stats with Sam. He ended the last year like a top 3 tight end. And, at the beginning of the year, he was just not himself, or at least he wasn't his rookie year self. So I think that if we could start out the year healthy, it'll be great. This offense will be cooking again, and it was already cooking last year. Let's get it even hotter. All right, offensive line, quite a group here. We know the guys at the top: Panay Sewell, Taylor Decker, got Dan Skipper out there, Jamarco Jones, Giovanni Manu, Coyote Ewasika, Mutai, Graham Glasgow, Christian Mahogany, Mason Miller, Michael Neese, Tate Ratledge, who we're going to talk about here in a second, Colby Sorsdale, Kingsley Guaquin, Tristan Colon, who we signed after Frank retired. Interestingly, Frank is still listed on the roster. I don't think he's officially retired yet, so I don't know. I don't want to get everybody's hopes up that he can come back, but he's still, if you go to the Detroit Lions website, he is still listed as active on the roster. I don't know what the delay is, but maybe it's a paperwork issue. I don't know. But in my heart of hearts, God, how great would that feel if he decided to come back? Anyways, Miles Frazier, who is Jacob's guy. Anything to read about I'm real quick, Ash. Are you hoping Frank comes back, or is this even possible?
I would love for him to come back. As a proud owner of a Frank Ragnow, it'd be nice to pull that out and not suddenly burst into tears. But it's like a 5% chance. I think the reason they haven't done it is, well, it's the common theory. Like, I'm sure those people have said it before as well. They're probably waiting until training camp properly starts. Everyone's there. Then they're going to do like a let's celebrate Frank Ragnow Day and let him officially retire that way. Give a speech, have the whole ceremony, kind of like what happened with Jason Kelsey with the Eagles. Give him that kind of fanfare because he's the kind of guy that deserves that. He's usually not one that likes the limelight, but he's quite literally been the centerpiece of this transformation from a not great franchise to one of the best franchises in the league right now. He's been there through it all. Obviously, played right guard to start in his rookie season, moves to center. It's absolutely great. Last season with Stafford, obviously plays with a fractured throat and is unable to do the blitz calls. Playing for all the injuries he's had, and he's still there. And yeah, going out on top when he's still got his health, he's able to go hunting, he's able to be with his kids. Fully respect it, but it's a 5% chance, and even then, it's like we're getting close to the playoffs. It hasn't really worked out in the interior. We just need him to come back just to plug that hole, kind of like what we did with Teddy last year, where didn't have faith in Hendon. Let's get Teddy in just in case we need like a break glassing kind of emergency kind of player. Frank could be that in the interior, but I very much doubt it. Unfortunately, I think it's just waiting to celebrate him. Then we put the paperwork in. He gets a nice ceremony, gets the keys to the city, kind of thing, and then he can go. But he can go and retire happily and go hunting and fishing all he likes without having to worry about protecting Jared from, Kenny Clark and Dexter Lawrence and all those scary big guys who would break us in half.
Exactly. Are you holding out? Jacob? Is this going to happen?
No, definitely not. There's no way that Frank would have announced it if he wasn't 100% positive that he just was not going to be able to do it. And they seem to have respected his decision and everything. I don't know what to make of still being on the roster, but I know it's not anybody trying to convince him to come back or anything. And like Ash said, maybe, if there's an emergency and we need him in the middle or end of the season or something like that, maybe that would be the only way that he would come back. I don't even think then. That's prime hunting season in Michigan, so he'll be busy.
Yeah, great point there, Jacob. He's not coming back, but it just seems a shame if we do go on and do these great things that he won't be on there because he's instrumental for us being in the spot that we are. All right, as far as the guys we're expected to be on this team, who are out of the list I just said, Ash, who you looking in training camp wise? Who are you looking forward to seeing the most?
It's going to be a weird answer, but the Tay Mute, the right guard who was impressive in camp last year, then got injured because I think pretty much everyone's got Mahogany penciled in at left guard right now. That's his job. Centre and right guard are the two ones that are a toss-up right now. Obviously, I know Ratledge is supposed to be our starting centre and then Glasgow at right guard. But considering how Glasgow played last season, I don't know if it was a move to left guard. I don't know whether it's Father Time catching up to him. He obviously lost a step. With Muti, who's got experience starting at right guard for the Raiders, he's got the kind of physical profile you look for in the right guard, elite run blocker, good enough in pass protection that it's not going to be a liability. And he's a couple of years younger than Glasgow. If he looks good in camp, I'm not saying we push Glasgow completely off the roster, but it makes that situation interior a lot more palatable if Glasgow is your first man off the bench in the interior rather than being a starter. And instead you have him backing up centre in all the guard positions and you have a healthy, younger interior core of Mahogany, Ratledge and Muti. Might be a bit more palatable going into the season than maybe risking one more season with Glasgow, it not working and then having to go to that option anyway.
What about you, Jacob? Are these, is it Miles Frazier? Is that your guy? Or are you going with someone else? You're going to surprise me.
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, just to speak on Graham, I think that the spot's going to be Graham's. They're going to give him every chance to win that spot just because of the fact he's been here. But it's really important to have a veteran, towards the middle. Obviously, we've got the veterans on the outside, but I look at the offensive line as a whole, as a unit, the buildup. As it looks right now, like you said, Ratledge is going to supposedly be the starting center. We also don't know because of this holdout. I don't know if you know the situation with that, but rookies are supposed to report to camp on Wednesday. Tate Ratledge is still unsigned. There's a huge thing going on in the NFL right now. There's 30 of the 32 second-round picks have not been signed. So if he doesn't sign a contract before Wednesday, he's not going to be there on Wednesday. That's really, really bad. We need him there. We need him if he's supposed to be center. We need him there. We need him snapping the ball. We need him getting those reps in right away. Every rep counts, especially at center. So that's extremely concerning for me if he's not there. And if he's not, do we just default to Tristan Colon? Just to have that veteran in the center, where he's played center before, or do you give someone like Miles Frazier, the first crack at center like that? This is really, really intriguing to me. I'm very, it's weird to be so excited about an offensive line battle, but I think there's so many variables and, we have so many possibilities, so many good players. Maybe Ratledge doesn't start at center. Maybe he takes one of those guard spots. Glasgow takes over at center. Maybe it's Frazier, Cologne, Moody. We've got all these guys. I mean, there's just I know without a doubt the best five are going to play. The best five are going to be the ones that are chosen week 1. Whether that's the same 5 that are going to be there in week 10, I really hope so, because the continuity in offensive line is crucial. And that's my biggest concern right now is that Ratledge is not signed and is not going to be there. Even if he doesn't play center, he still needs to be there. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
So first I'll hit on the Ratledge thing. The Ratledge, reason why all those second rounds haven't signed is because the first 2 got fully guaranteed contracts. So all those agents are telling those guys to hold out. And so I'm not like overly worried about it. It'll get worked out as soon as one domino falls, they'll all fall. The problem with the Lions is that we're reporting earlier than everybody else because of we got the Hall of Fame game, right? So like Ratledge is kind of stuck because he could be the first guy that signs. Is he going to sign or the Lions going to give him a fully guaranteed? Now he's drafted, number 60. So 60, right? Is where
57.
He was at. Was it 50? Oh, we traded up from 60 to 57.
Yeah.
So towards the back half of that second round. So is he looked at like at the top of the second round? Where are they going to have that cutoff? The first half of the second round gets fully guaranteed. I mean, it all got screwed up because those 2 guys at the beginning signed, and they could argue that, hey, we're first round, we had first round grades or first round picks, and maybe they deserve that. I don't know where it's all going to break down, but the problem is the Lions are kind of stuck in the middle, and Ratledge is kind of stuck there too. Ratledge is a guy that's going to want to play football. I don't expect him to like put his feet in the sand and just like dig in and say, well, I'm not going to play. He knows how important it is. He knows what the opportunity is ahead of him, right? The guy cried when we drafted him. The guy wants to play football. I'm not worried about it from that perspective. It's a timing thing, though, Jacob. You're 100% right. He needs all the reps he's going to get. So, if he misses a day, is it going to be the end of the world? No, it's not. But I also like the impression thing of like, I'm ready day one and I want to be out there. And that just what it says to your teammates too, right? I just want to play football. So that's what I'm hoping on that.
Real
I'm
quick
not a
before you go forward, I just want to,
yeah.
because I've got the numbers just about this too, because
Yeah.
he's also stuck between a rock and a hard place just because of where he was drafted at. Because the first two picks signed their fully guaranteed contracts. Everybody else is holding out for fully guaranteed.
Mhm.
If Tate does sign, let's say he agrees and he does not sign a fully guaranteed contract, that puts him in the middle of all these other guys too. Because now, everyone's holding out for fully guaranteed money. Now you've basically ruined the chance for anyone drafted below you in the second round. Because now all the teams have that leverage to say, well, you know what? He was drafted in front of you and he took, whatever.
Mhm.
The 57 overall pick last year, the contract was 4 years, 6.78 million, 3.8 million was guaranteed. So a little over half of that was guaranteed. They're not protecting too much from these second round picks. And the first, I don't know if he was the first pick of the second round now, but Ladd McConkey was early on in the second round last year. His contract was 9.9 million, 9.1 fully guaranteed. So yes, maybe, when you hear fully guaranteed, you think, okay, they're getting every single dollar, and they are. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're going to offer 9.1 of the 9.9 guaranteed, how much of a difference does that make? And how valuable is it to get these guys, because they're rookies. It's not like they're choosing, hey, I'm holding out for, my contract, blah, blah, blah. They're not signed. They don't sign. They can't show up. It's not on them. So, like you said, Tate's really stuck in a bad spot between his agent, between the league, and between the team. It's a very, very bad spot to be in. But, what's the answer? Do you wait for everybody in front of you to start signing, or do you just bite the bullet and, and let's say he does sign for half of the contract guaranteed, and then everybody else holds out, and then he's the only second round pick that didn't get it fully guaranteed. It's just a really weird situation. I just wanted to explain that a little bit more before you went forward with your offensive line.
Nope.
Sorry,
No,
go ahead.
No, that was great information. So, Ash, before I move on to my pick, I don't want to change the subject. So, you have any thoughts on the Tate Ratled's situation as a whole?
So luckily there is a third option available, which is, I believe, the NFLPA does offer kind of waiver in these kind of situations that the rookie can sign. It protects them from injury, so they can still practice while contract negotiations are going on. So I believe Ant mentioned it on our podcast. He knows more about it because he knows the contract stuff. Same with Matt, a lot better than me. But I believe there's a waiver he can sign if Tate does not want to hold out but still wants to participate while these agents sorting it out. It's the best of both worlds then, where the agent can still do the behind the scenes stuff, try and work out this fully guaranteed situation. Tate doesn't look like a scab to everyone else in the second round, putting himself in that tough situation. But he's still able to come to practice, get those reps in, and then let's say, I don't know, he does pull a hammy, he needs to miss a couple of days. He's not going to then get financially taken away from that. He's still going to get paid to practice while his agent sorts it out. So it's the kind of best of both worlds where you're not signing that that contract and making yourself look bad, but at the same time you're also not holding out and making look bad to the team you've got, and they've got that halfway house where everyone sorts it out. And the good news is as well is I think Tate's the kind of guy that would not hold out, as you say, cried when we drafted him. He's the kind of guy that fought back to play at Georgia, was their team captain, was the center of their offensive line in terms of leadership, and that was all the clips of him shouting Carson Beck's face, trying to get him motivated when Carson Beck was going for all his stuff last year, the slump he had after absolutely destroying my Florida State Seminoles in the Orange Bowl. Before then, he obviously got the bag NIL ways and went down to Florida himself to play for Miami. He's the kind of guy that won't hold out. So I think if he's the situation, he'll sign the waiver, practice, and then leaves agent to do the financial stuff while he just focuses on the football. So I think we're not in a dire straits here like the Chargers are right now with their wide receiver Trey Harris, who is holding out, who has picked a couple of picks in front of Tate. Instead, we've got that good situation where sign the waiver, you can still practice, we'll sort out the contract stuff, just focus on football.
Yep. And that's a good point there. I know that a lot of times they'll sign those waivers, especially early on, like rookie main camp and stuff like that, because those guys are all practicing. They are putting their body at risk, but they're going to be out there while this contract gets settled out. And Jacob, you're right. Like the overall amount of money is not being argued about. It's just that total guaranteed money. And I haven't really thought about the players looking at Tate like that aspect. I hadn't really thought about that until you said that. So that's a great point. Like he's in a pretty tough spot, but it's also his position where he's at. So it'll be interesting. But I'm gonna go back to my original question of who I'm looking forward to at this
Yes.
in this training camp situation. Mine is Manu. Obviously, he looked really rough last year, right? Two things I want to look for is where they're going to have him playing because there's talk of him moving inside at guard, right? I want to see where he lines up, right? And then I want to see how he looks. Does he look a lot more comfortable? Does he look less robotic? Is he getting in position? Is he getting, his body set? Is he, are people blowing past him during the preseason game? He's obviously going to probably, if he's looking ready or making that next step, we're going to see a lot of him in these preseason games. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm just overall looking forward to seeing where he lines up. And like Jacob said, there are so many moving parts here, but with Frank leaving, even without Frank, there would be a lot of like the guard positions would be in flux. But now that Frank's out and Graham's, flexibility there, Ratledge's flexibility there, who could go, who's going to go there. So it'll be interesting. And like Jacob said, he had a great point. I hope whoever we start week 1, it showed out that in week 10, so we're not moving people in and out. Just that consistency is going to be there. I do have 100% faith in Hank Fraley to get the team ready. One thing that I do like is that we're going to have some flexibility if there's an injury happens in a game, right? We're going to have a lot of people that can play anywhere along that line. And our ends are set. I mean, that's where you really worry about, right? We're worried about the outsides. We don't have to worry about Paneso and Taylor Decker will do their jobs. They're going to do it well. So I'm okay there. We just need to get everybody else set. Any other guys that you guys want to talk about? Ash, I asked you the guy you were looking for the most. Is there anybody else on that list that you got your eye on?
I've got my eye on, and it's not in a wholly negative way, but it's also not in a positive way. I just want to see something from Colby Sorsdal in a similar situation to Manu, where, okay, I know we drafted Sorsdal day 3 from William Mary, so it's FCS school, not exactly the best competition. Did kind of get up the rough end of the stick the first year. So obviously played right tackle for William Mary, was then moved inside to guard, back out to tackle. He's not really been able to settle into a position. I just want to see something from him because, again, kind of like we were discussing earlier with some of the other players, it's kind of getting to not a push up time with him where he has to show something, show why we drafted him, show why the O-line guru that Pride Detroit had a couple of years ago when we drafted him, why he really liked him, show it. Because right now, you were a guy who was inactive for most of the games last year, and you were a draft pick. And we did have a couple of issues on the offensive line, so it would have been nice for you to be active so we could see what you would do in those situations. So Sorsdal's someone I want to see where he's played, if it's tackle or guard, and I want to see him get most of the reps so we can see what we've got there. Because if it doesn't look good, he's probably on the streets, and I know a team will probably pick him up, try and get something out of him because that's the state of offensive line right now across the league. There's not even 32 good like tackles in the league, let alone 64 to bookend offensive lines. He'll probably get picked up somewhere else and absolutely show out and probably show us all up. But I want to see it for the Lions because if you're going to work anywhere, it's probably here or it's Philadelphia because we've got the best 2 offensive line coaches in the league. So if you can't do it for us, I don't trust you to go and look amazing for the Giants or look amazing for Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
You need to show it here.
Yep. How about you, Jacob? Anybody you're got your eye on other than?
I want Miles Frazier to do good.
Yes.
So I'll be looking at him closer than the other guys. But there's no pressure on him right away. Just compete, right?
That's right.
I don't, doesn't matter to me what name is at the top of these, even if you do say, you know what, Iguaquin really showed out he's going to take a guard spot or he's going to start at center, awesome. I hope that somebody does take over like that. And like you said, we'll have rotating pieces. If there is an injury happening, then we'll have people that can slide in. We'll move stuff around. We'll make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of guys that can play multiple positions. I like that for the offensive line. I think that just shows, better. But, obviously you want just the best talent wherever they're going to put him in. The Lions are going to look at him like how Jacob looks at it. You look at the line as a whole. Your best 5 may not, whoever plays center maybe be able to play guard better. But for the team, they're gonna put their best 5 out there that works the best. So I'm hoping that Tate signs by Wednesday and we don't have to deal with it. I just hopefully he's out there, but I'm sure it's gonna work out sooner rather than later. All right, Jacob, I'm gonna let you handle the defense and the names. We're gonna start with the defensive line first. So I'm gonna let you throw out the names and go from there.
All right. Defensive line: Miles Adams, Keith Cooper, Roy Lopez, Broderick Martin, Aleem McNeil, Pat O'Connor, Levi Anuzarike, DJ Reader. You've got names combined here: Chris Smith, Raekwon Williams, Tyleek Williams, Makai Wingo. These are the bulk of the interior defensive line. So, Jason, we're going to start with you here. What names popping out at you? Who are you looking at here?
I like our defensive line. I know that Aleem's going to be out, but I'm happy with the interior on this defensive line. I like that Levi could play inside and outside. We've mentioned him early. Broderick Martin, he's got to show something, or he's not going to be on this team to start the year. We cannot afford to keep a guy. It was rough last year to keep him inactive. When we needed defensive line, he's inactive. That hurt us. We could have used that roster spot. So I really hoping that he could show that he's going to be there. I'm hoping either way. I'm hoping that he shows he's going to be there, or it's just clear cut that they just need to cut him so he doesn't take a roster spot. Levi could play inside or outside. Like I said, I like Pat O'Connor. He's Casey Rogers was his previous coach. He knows what he's got. Dan Campbell always talks about Pat O'Connor. The name would come up in the press conferences when people didn't even ask him about him. He's just one of those guys. He's kind of, he's probably more talented than Chris Smith, but both those guys are try-hard guys, and you know what you're going to get out of them. Are they the best guys? No, but you know what you're going to get out of them, and that is the Lions value that probably, I don't know about more than other teams, but they truly value that. They like to be able to know this guy's going to be in the right spot where he's going to be, and it's great for your teammates too. You're going to know that guy's going to be there and do his job, so you could trust that, so you could do your job better. Roy Lopez, I just want to see what this guy looks like in the Honolulu Blue. I want to see where they're going to put him. I'm excited about that too. So I threw out a bunch of names. Ash, I'm going to let you go before I take every name on this list.
All right. So I'm also looking at Broderick. Again, someone that Ant on our podcast absolutely love. He loves the Sun Belt. He loves Western Kentucky. So when we drafted him, he knew a bit more about him than probably most Lions curators did. But unfortunately, every single season, when the coaches ask about Broderick, it's the same thing that comes up time and time again: pad level. The big guy just not worked out his pad levels. He's always out leveraged. Like I remember watching 2 years ago the game against the Raiders where we debuted the lovely helmets, but we were still wearing the pajama party uniforms, and Jimmy G was quarterback for the Raiders, and Broderick was in, and he was just getting pushed back 5 yards by the Raiders offensive line, which, okay, they've got Colton Miller, who's a good left tackle. They didn't really have that much else on the offensive line, and yet this guy who's big Hulk and like 6'6", 330 pounds was getting pushed back 5 yards. I was like, what's going on here? And it's just, he hasn't got the fun. I hate to bring up this word because it'll bring back some flashbacks to the previous coach, but the fundamentals of playing defensive tackle down. And until he works that out, he might not even be a practice squadder. But I think that's why we've kind of done what we've done this offseason with defensive tackle, especially that kind of one-tech position, bringing in Roy Lopez, drafting Tyleek Williams, who, okay, mostly played 3-tech for Ohio State, but in my mind, how I'm putting it out, I think he's going to be DJ Reader's long-term successor at 1-tech for us. We've got 3 guys in front of him in the depth, in front of Broderick, in front of the depth chart now. Potentially 4 with Pat O'Connor, who you mentioned, Jason, because last season when we brought him in, Connor played everywhere from the 1-tech out to the big end 5-6 tech. There's 4 guys in front of Broderick who really needs to show us in his preseason, or he's probably getting cut. He's not even going to be on the practice squad, because what's the point of having someone on the practice squad if you've already invested a good couple of years into him and you haven't seen that improvement? You might as well give that to another spot to one of the UDFA receivers, one of the UDFA running backs, or Keith Cooper, who we brought in from Houston. I know he was initially reported we signed him, but then he was a rookie tryout. There's again someone who can play the same kind of role as Josh Pascal, starting at the big end, flexing inside to the 3-tech on pass rushing downs. Give someone like him the chance to develop into something, see what we got there, rather than Broderick, who you've already invested a lot into. You've had 3 different defensive line coaches him, all put their hands on him, trying to mold him into that perfect 1-tech. Brought in DJ Reed as well, who's one of the best veteran run stopping nose tackles in the league, and you haven't been able to get much out of him. It's time for the project to really show up. And then the other guy, and it's kind of the obvious answer on the edge, is Hassani. What can we get out of him at that edge spot? Because, yeah, we've got Aiden coming back from his injury. Hopefully he gets back to his all-pro form. We've got Marcus Davenport, when he's healthy, looks good. The reason Aiden did so well against that Buccaneers game is because Davenport was healthy, active, holding up that one tackle, so Aiden was getting single teams who could play off Pascal. We know what we're getting from him: good run stopping defensive end who can flex inside on pass rushing downs as a pass rusher. Hassani's that wild card in that edge room right now for me, where he's got the frame to be a really damn good defensive lineman, 275 pounds. Just needs to learn the run defense discipline. So if we can see that out of him in the preseason, if you can still see the pass rushing chops, but also the run down sort of tendencies to not have the misassignments, we could have a damn good defensive end on our hands here. Absolute steal out of Boise State. But this is the time to get him the reps now, because he's got all the athleticism in the world, former CrossFit champion. Let's get him the game reps so we can learn the run down discipline, the pass rush plan, so we can get that defensive end out of him. Because if we can, we won't have to worry about Davenport and Pascal when their contracts run at the end of the season. Groom Hassani to be defensive end 2 next year, and suddenly this big issue that everyone was pointing at before Frank retired as the big issue on the line to use their defensive end 2. Hassani could be that with a good bit of tutoring and run and some snaps in the preseason and the right season, and we could have a monster on our hands.
Mm-hmm. Jacob, no one's mentioned Tyleek. We haven't mentioned Tyleek.
I'm getting there.
What, are you going there? Oh, good. I'm glad you're getting there. Go.
All right. So first, just to touch on, because you both had mentioned Broderick Martin. In my opinion, I think that Broderick is already on the outside looking in. He's had too many chances. He has really not shown any sort of development or improvement that he needed to last year. The chance to step up and show what you had was last year. Now you're really on the outside looking in, and I just don't think that he's going to make the team. I don't think that he's got enough. What I'm interested in is to see, obviously Tyleek Williams, to see what he has, where they line him up, because we need him to take over for Aleem, right? We need him to be what Aleem was, which is, obviously he's not going to be playing at that level, but we need to see what he has. Also with Mekhi Wingo, I kind of want to see, are these, are they tier 1 or tier 2 players right now to start off with? Obviously Aleem, DJ Reader, Levi, you would consider them tier 1. Then you've got tier 2, in my opinion, would be Pat O'Connor, Chris Smith, Miles Adams. Roy Lopez is probably floating somewhere around there where, they might not be the first line out there, but these guys can rotate in. They can, potentially in a pinch, they could, take over and be able to be productive. We need Wingo and Tyleek to be towards that top. I'm excited to see both of them, and I definitely think that they both are up to the challenge there. I just hope that Tyleek gets up to speed really quick. That he's not getting pushed around, that he's really competing, day one right away. Now that Aleem is out, I already said, but now that Aleem is out, we really need him, to be performing right there. If he's not, does Levi, take over that spot and just start as defensive tackle right there? Roy Lopez, Mekhi Wingo, how much of a rotation is going on? These are all things I want to see during training camp. I'm not sure how much we see during the preseason game, but these are why, the camp practices are really important for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tyleek, one thing I know he's going to be able to do is stop the run. That's what he's probably going to be able to, I don't know, match Aleem on that, but come close to matching Aleem at stopping the run. Rushing the passer is going to take a little bit of time, and that wasn't necessarily his game at Ohio State. I think he's going to be able to develop into that type of player. But the Lions just need him to come in and stop the run with DJ Reader. That's what we need to do. And then we got Aiden back. We're hoping that he does his job on the outside. And I'm going to, Ash, what's your over-under on Davenport? How many games are we going to see him this year? I'm not saying games that he's going to finish, but how many games do you think we're going to see him in? What's your over-under?
4.5.
4.5?
Probably sounds optimistic. Yeah. Okay. Probably sounds a bit optimistic, but I think just having people behind him that the team know they can trust, we can rotate a bit more. So obviously AQ came in last year, looked good in spells. That's someone they can rotate in there. Pascal hopefully will be fully healthy. Again, someone with an injury question. Rotating there. Hassanin as well. Nate Lynn, someone again from William Mary. I know we mentioned them earlier with Sorsdorf, but that was someone who's looking good in preseason last year before he got his injury. And then you got the other couple of guys of Ukwu and Akude and Keith Cooper, I mentioned the UDFA. We've got guys there who hopefully can spell him with on certain downs to make sure that he stays healthy. And then obviously, avoid putting him against Paris Johnson Jr. when he decides to play karate. That would probably help, Davenport's health.
I know. I have a feeling I'm hoping we get 8 or 9 games out of him. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but that's if I heard 8 games out of Davenport, I'd be like, okay, well that's good, because what he showed in that first game with the Rams, with him and Aiden on the other side, that looked like a pretty dominating duo. And Levi actually looked really good in that game in the first games too. So not only are we going to get Aiden back, he's going to make everybody else look so much better. And so, like, you could count on Aiden's stats, but he's going to improve everybody else's stats. And so, like, when we're going through all this kick, what everybody was talking about, we need this edge, we need all that. How soon the Lions fans forgot how dominant Aiden is and what he's going to add to this team outside of just being Aiden himself, like what he's going to do on the field himself, all the indirect things that he does to help his teammates out and the focus and everything like that. It's going to make everyone look better. So I'm hoping that Davenport's healthy at the edge, because I think he's exactly what the Lions want. A guy that's super strong, like mammothly strong, and could condense a pocket, hold the edge, but condense a pocket and just crush it like a can, because that's what they want. They want DJ Reader, they want Tyleek, Aleem, whenever Aleem's in there, they want them to crush that, and then Aiden could just, they got one escape route, and that's the Aiden, and that's what they're hoping for. And then everybody else could just clean out the mess from them running away from Aiden. But I am excited to see Aiden be just on the field in general. But beyond that, Hassanin, like, I'm going to be like, okay, where's Hassanin on the field? What's he doing? What's he looks like? Because are we going to have a James Houston where a guy just like is not in position all the time, but can rush the passer? Because I think that's initially how he's going to look. He's going to have to show that development, because like in his college tape, he missed some tackles, right? And the Lions are not going to put him on the field if he's not reliable at the edge. They're just not going to do it. I don't care how much you could rush the passer. James Houston was that guy. He just couldn't count on him to be, and all the coaches said it, like, yeah, he's in the room. That's what they would say. Yeah, he's in the room still. It's like, but they couldn't count on him to be where he's at. And that, the fans see the sack totals. We saw the sack totals in the rookie year, the James Houston I'm talking about. Wonder why he can't get on the field. The Lions want guys, like I said before, that they could trust and they could be where they're going to be. Hassanin's going to have to show that. Beyond freak athleticism, he's going to have to show that he can make the tackles and be in the spot, and he can't just overrun the quarterback, because we've seen that, right, where a guy just runs past the quarterback. Well, then you're totally out of spot and you're running behind him. And in the NFL, you get a guy that can run. You get Lamar Jackson. You ain't going to catch him if you get by him. So I am interested in seeing Hassanin, and I can't wait to that. I mean, as far as the edge, just we don't know what he's going to look like in the Honolulu Blue. So I'm excited about that. Any of the edge players you want to talk about, Jacob?
No, agreed. That was the only player that I had circled for sure as Hassanin, just because, we already know about the motor and everything. You guys pretty much have already said it, but, we know, physical traits and everything like that. How is that going to translate? How is he going to look right away? Is it going to take time for him to get everything down? How much playing time is he even going to get with the starters? Is he going to get any at all? How much are we moving around on these edges? Do we take it easy on Hutchinson in training camp, ease him back in? I know Aiden doesn't want that. So, be another player it's interesting to see in somebody, like you said, Jason, be looking for his number, looking for 61. Where is he at? Is he out there? What's he look like?
All right. Why don't we move on to linebackers, Jacob?
All right, linebackers on the squad: Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Trevor Nowaski, Malcolm Rodriguez, Grant Stewart, Ezekiel Turner, Anthony Pittman, Zach Cunningham, Deron Gilbert. I think it was ESPN that ranked this linebacker group as second. Was it second or third in the league, Jason?
PFF had them second. I don't
PFF
know
second. Okay.
Yeah. Right behind the Eagles.
Second in the league. So, Ash, we'll start with you here. What do you think about the linebackers? Who are you looking at?
Unfortunately for me, the linebackers come down to one player, and it's not even how he performs in camp. It's if he turns up at all, because if Anzalone holds out for any reason for the contract, for all that, my confidence in this linebacker room goes from like a 5 out of 5. I'm happy with all the stars. I'm happy with the depth behind him. Suddenly, I'm a lot more panicky because we all saw what happened when he wasn't in the defense last year. Our linebacker coverage went just off the cliff. Unfortunately for me, the Bills game was on my birthday, so I had to sit there on the stream and watch Ty Johnson just catch pass after pass after pass against our linebackers. I don't want that to happen again, because people saw that on tape, and as soon as they see that Anzalone's not on the field, they're just going to attack us with their tight ends and running backs in the pass game, because they know that we won't be able to keep up. The only other player that I can have any confidence in coverage is Deron Gilbert. And that's because he was a safety linebacker hybrid in college, so he's got a bit of that coverage in him. But we haven't seen it on an actual NFL field because he's not really taken many snaps. So if Anzalone doesn't show up, which I hope he doesn't, I think the team will have something in place that they'll sign the extension when the veterans report, and it will be nice hunky dory. But if he doesn't show up, he holds out because of that contract. This linebacker room looks a whole lot shakier to me, because we don't have anyone else really that can replace him at the will. Like Jack, I'm happy with at the Mike. Barnes, I'm happy with at the Sam. I'm happy with Grant Stewart as the backup. Mike, I'm happy with Nebraska as the backup Sam, or Pittman, depending on which is your flavour. When Malcolm comes back, I'm happy him rotating in all three spots. Will is Anzalone right now and no one else. So if he doesn't show up, the linebacker room looks a whole scarier to me.
Yep. And you're right on there. I mean, Alex is the key to it all. I like this linebacker room, and in a whole, I think it's one of the tops in the league. I'm happy with the progress Jack Campbell is making. He's one of the top linebackers in the league. He's shown why he was drafted 18th overall. The lines are developing him into a guy that can just run that defense. But Alex he's a switchblade. He could be anywhere that you want him to be on this field. He makes this defense run as a whole. Ash, you said it right. Our defense looked vastly different with him off the field as opposed to him being on the field. Now, we had a lot of other pieces missing at the same time too, and then we thought we had fixed it when Alex came back with the Vikings. It did look better, but he's a guy that could cover in space, but he's also a guy that could rush. He's a guy that gets everybody in the right spot. So yeah, I'm hoping that Alex comes. They're gonna make it right. I'm just hoping that this doesn't drag on too far in camp. I'm hoping that he's there, later on this week and everything's is good to go. I can't imagine he's asking for too much. But the Lions are also in a position where I know we got cap space this year, but we're going to be hitting it next year with everybody that's getting an extension. So I know we're playing that game, but I'm hoping that everybody shows up. I'm excited about Derek Barnes. I'm just excited to have him on the field, healthy. He plays that same position so well. I'm hoping that he could rush the passer better this year. I'm hoping that he could show that. But I'm just excited to have him on the field. I like Derek Barnes. I just like him as a person. I like the growth that he's shown with this organization. Obviously, the Lions do because they re-signed him to gave him a deal to bring him back, right? And next year it's going to be up to we're going to be signing Jack maybe to an extension, right? Too. So we got to keep this room going, and getting Malcolm back will be great too. Jacob, anybody? Grant Stewart's the other guy too, right? I high effort guy. I'm excited to see him too.
Definitely. It starts with the starters, right? Anzalone, Barnes, Campbell, ABC. Excited to see them, together again and everything, see how they work as a unit. Like you guys have already mentioned, though, Anzalone is just so important. My biggest concern is the depth. And I know that Ash kind of went through it already, but I mean, if Anzalone's not out there, do you move Stewart over? Like, because the other answer, Rodrigo's out. We saw Ezekiel Turner last year, and that did not work at all. I don't know. I mean, I think Ezekiel Turner's on the wrong side of a roster spot at the beginning right now. Deron Gilbert also got hurt last year and then got cut. So, I mean, neither of those guys have shown enough that they can step in if we need them to. So it's hugely concerning if he holds out, or just in case of, knock on wood, an injury or something like that. That's my biggest concern, is just the depth of the linebacker room behind him. Rodrigo's out until like October or something like that. So it's crucial that, ABC, these guys, are all out there. If they are all out there, that's a very, very good linebacker crew, and that's really important to the defense. I hope that Anzalone doesn't hold out. I hope that they just pay him the contract. Like you said, Jason, there's no way that he's asking for, top 5 linebacker money or anything like that. I'm sure he's just looking for a little more guaranteed, longer deal. If you're Brad Holmes, just sign it now. I don't know what exactly we're waiting for there. I don't want any holdout. I don't want any sort of distraction in training camp or anything like that. That's just not this team. It just doesn't make sense for us. So really hoping that it doesn't come to that. But yeah, Nowaski showed flashes last year. Grant Stewart, for the Colts, actually did not play terribly last year. So as a backup and a rotational piece, that's pretty good, especially without Rodrigo. Does Zach Cunningham make the team? I don't know. He's probably on the outside looking in right now, too. He's a depth piece right now, but that's just my biggest concern. I have no concern over the starters. My biggest concern is if something was to happen to one of them, our depth right now, I don't like the way that looks.
And that's mostly because of Malcolm being out too, right? If Malcolm's in there, then
Absolutely.
I'm feeling good. If we're missing one of them, I like Malcolm to be able to come in. Now, is he a long-term solution? Probably not, but I have confidence that he can come in and handle any one of those positions.
Exactly. That's his value. He can go and come in anywhere. I mean, he's maybe not going to be playing top 10, although Pro Football Focus rated him really high. The thing about Malcolm is maybe he's not quite as talented as some of the other linebackers, but the smarts are there, and he knows his role. He knows the role for each one. Sam, Will, Mike, he knows where he's supposed to be in each spot. He's right there. Does he always make the play? Maybe not, but more times than not, he does. And that's the problem when you have, Ezekiel Turner in coverage. He's just continuously letting, passes go by. He's not in position. That's just a huge, huge loss if Anzalone is not out there, as you guys have already alluded to.
Yep. All right, Jacob, I think it's time to move on cornerbacks.
All right. Cornerback room looks a little bit different than it did last year. DJ Reed, Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw, Khalil Dorsey, Amik Robertson, Rock Yassin, Avante Maddox, Stanley Thomas Oliver. These are the corners we're going into training camp. So, Jason, we'll start with you this time. Who are you looking at corner?
Well, I want to see how DJ Reed looks. I want to see him. I mean, we haven't seen him play for Lions yet. We know how good he is with the Jets, right? But I just want to see him how, we wanted Carlton, right? I wanted Carlton back. I was hoping that he'd come back. Didn't happen. I'm actually kind of more excited to get DJ Reed. I just didn't think that was going to be a possibility. I just did not see us going out, and I thought he was going to command a higher contract than what he got. So I'm happy about seeing him. And Terrion, right? We want to see the growth. I want to see where he's going to be at, because I'm hoping that it just is a high trajectory. We get it like what we had with Darius Slay, right? Like the first year was a little rocky, and then all Pro Bowl after that. And that's what I'm hoping we see with Terrion. Because if he ends up being at least a solid 2, that's a really great 1 and 2 cornerback. And then we're gonna see Ennis too, right? So I'm hoping that DJ Reed is who I want to see. I want to see how he looks out there. I just want to see him in the Honolulu. As far as training camp, I just want to see the new player out there. But Terrion, yeah, I want to see, especially when they do those one-on-one drills. How's he look against JMO? How's that looking up? Will Amon-Ra be able to trick him with running exceptional routes? How is he holding up against that? So those are fun things that you get to see in training camp, that you get to see those one-on-one drills, and those are those are one of the most fun things that I have when we go to training camp. I know that Jacob and our eyes were stuck over there. Ennis looked good last year too in training camp, right, Jacob?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was playing at a very high level. It's something I was really excited for last year before that injury. So,
yep. All right, who are you looking at, Ash, in the cornerback room?
Maddox, Avante Maddox, because I've read a very good article today from Match Quarters, who's a guy that does stuff about like defensive trends in the league, and he did some kind of Substack today about how we were multiple in our personnel last year, and how that allowed us to play base more than anyone in the league because of how we used Branch and how we used Barnes. Maddox could be the next evolution of that, where could easily, I know it's listed for us as a nickel back a corner, we could easily slide in a strong safety, free safety. Having him on the field potentially at the same time as our two starting safeties will allow us to match up so well against some of the stuff that our divisional opponents will throw at us. You look at the Bears, they've got Cole Kmet, they've just drafted Colson Loveland really high up. Two really good tight ends. The Packers, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Graff, they drafted a couple of years ago. Two really good tight ends. TJ Hawkinson and the tight end who they just signed to a massive contract to the Vikings. Two really good tight ends. Having Maddox in to sort of play that matchup piece, then allow us to play matchups against two tight end sets. So good. And the fact that as well, I have some friends who are Eagles fans, unfortunately. There's some of the stuff that came out of them about how Maddox was so influential to the development of Reed Blankenship, who is their safety they got a couple of years ago from Middle Tennessee, and he's become one of the best young safeties in the league. And the effects that Maddox particularly had for Cooper DeJean this past year, going from sort of okay slot corner to bowling out in the Super Bowl. Maddox supposedly was key for their development, so having him in the room to help Ennis kind of develop as a corner, to help Arnold with some stuff, but also just to be solid depth behind them and behind Kirby at branch at safety as well, potentially. He could be like the linchpin of our depth in the same way that Ennis could be coming off the bench outside corner at nickel as well. Just having that kind of depth that you can trust. We've seen it the past couple of years. You need to have that at your cornerback room. Like, I don't want to go back to a couple of years ago where you look at our cornerback depth chart and it just gives you shivers. Like when we discussed it on our podcast earlier, I pulled up our cornerback depth chart from 2020 and it legit was horrifying. Jeff Okuda, Desmond Trufant, Emmanuel Robert, Justin Coleman, all these names that we gave massive money to or high draft picks, and they just never worked out. And then looking at where we are now with Arnold, with DJ Reed, who's a top 5 cornerback in the league according to most lists. Ennis Rakestraw was a first-round pick by a lot of mocks before he kind of fell for us last year. And then Amir Robertson, a kind of underrated free agent signing from last year. That depth is the difference between us making the playoffs but bouncing in the first round like the Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers seem to do every year now. The difference between that and being the Eagles, being the 49ers, being the Chiefs, the teams that get to the Super Bowl and really contend, Maddox and Rakestraw could be those little linchpins that take us over the hump to get finally to that Super Bowl.
Ash, I just want to tell you, you are awesome. Your analysis is great. I'm really glad you're on the show. I'm not going to wait to the end of the show to tell you that. I'm going to just tell you that right now. So I've been impressed so far. So I'm so glad that you're on the show. I'm
absolutely
here. Yeah. So
especially knowing that he's like 2:00 over there. He's just sleep deprived.
Yeah. How many monsters have you drank over there?
2 so far in the past 24 hours, but I'm on ginger beer now. Just calm the mind, calm the stomach, and just get through this.
All right,
nice.
All right, Jacob, who are you looking at?
Yeah, no, he kind of stole my words there with Maddox. That's who I want to see where they line him up, how much they're using him. I also want to see Amik and Khalil Dorsey just coming off injuries to see how they look. Khalil Dorsey in training camp and everything, he actually plays pretty well at corner. I know he doesn't get too many shots out there because he's more valuable on special teams, but we also heard from Deshae Townsend. They said Rakestraw is just going to be focusing on the outside. I wonder if they hold true to that, and that's how that looks. Because the problem that we had said before is that he's not going to surpass DJ Reed or Terrion Arnold, or you hope that he wouldn't. So he's constantly going to be playing behind. He's going to be on that second level, coming in, rotational pieces and everything like that. Does he play well enough where they decide they're going to look at him at nickel cornerback again? That's the best players need to be on the field. They got to figure out some way to do that. And Amik obviously played very well last year too, but I just want to see what Ennis has. Seeing him in person really made me a believer last year. So I know what he has, as far as the other guys, Rocky Sin, Stanley, Thomas Oliver, depth pieces, probably going to be getting a lot of work in the preseason, trying to earn roster spots there. But, obviously you're excited to see DJ Reed and Terrion because those are the, those are the stars, right? We want these to be shut down corners. We want a lot of tough receivers in the NFC North, a lot of tough opponents. We want to see what we have out of those two guys. But the names I'm circling for sure are going to be Maddox and Rakestraw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll get a good look at them. And Maddox is going to, the next group that we're going to talk about is safety. And that is where I think he's going to show his value this year, because when we get to that group, the depth isn't there. So, Jacob, before I ruin everything, why don't you tell us who the safeties are and we'll go from there.
Well, obviously, we're going to start with the top two here, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph. Behind them is where the competition starts. Eric Hallett, Dan Jackson, Ian Kennelly, Maurice Norris, Lauren Strickland. And then I guess if you want to include Avante Maddox in there, he's going to be getting a lot of work in safety too. Mm-hmm. So, Jason, let's start with you this time. What are you thinking?
Well, Dan Jackson, who I want to see. Try hard. Seems like a lion, right? Drafted 7th round. He's going to have a good chance. There's not a lot of depth at safety. They're going to, behind our awesome, all-pro Kirby Joseph, future all-pro, in my opinion, Brian Branch. Behind them, it's a mixed bag, right? We either have, late round or undrafted free agents outside of Avante Maddox, who we're going to try to move over, try to play at safety, who I expect to be over there. Jim O'Neill, who is, the safeties back, safety coach or whatever. I don't know what passing game coordinator. I'm not sure exactly what his exact title is, but he basically alluded to the fact in the offseason talk that they're playing him all over. So he's cornerback and safety. But based on the depth, I think Avante's going to have a good chance of being safety number 3. That's the way I'm looking. But I want to see Dan Jackson. I want to see how he looks. He's just one of those Georgia guys that Brad Holmes liked, and he's going to be ready to come in. He's a walk-on, and any guy that could walk on to Georgia and be as loved as him, it just seems like a lion to me. So I'm really hoping for that he's going to be able to make it. So we'll be able to see him in training camp. Safety's tough, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes on there, and you're the last outlet back there, right? So if you don't do a good job, everyone knows it, because you're the one that's the first guy that's chasing that wide receiver that ran by you. So I'm curious to see how it's going to work out. I'm hoping that Dan shows enough that he can make the team, at least in starting special teams, and then see how he goes. And then towards the end of the year, does he start making a rotation? So that's what I'm looking at seeing. Ash, who are you looking at?
Jackson was going to be one of my guys, because I honestly think he was misused at Georgia. Watching the tape on him, they were using a lot as a free safety when his best play was as a run defender in the box. So the reason that you watch the tape and he's getting a lot of tackles, but they're like 10 yards down the field. It's just he's starting 15 yards down. It's a single high safety in their cover 3 scheme. He's reading the run and blitzing down, but by the time he gets to the back, it's 10 yards. They've already got the first down, so it's looking bad on him. He's got instincts to play in the box, and some of the coverage instincts from playing single high to cover tight ends, like we mentioned with Branch, with Maddox. So him growing into that role would be nice to see with also the special teams. And he's a cerebral guy. Like we've all probably heard the stories about how when his defensive coach in high school installed this split safety scheme where one side of the field would play like cover 3, the other side would play cover 4. It was Dan Jackson who was making that calls on the fly, saying which side will play what. He's got the brain knowledge up there, as well as the physical grit, the ability to work from being a walk-on to one of their captains in his last year. So I'm excited to see Jackson. And the other guy is in Kennelly. So the complete opposite in a way that Jackson has all the cerebral stuff, knows how to play safety, but perhaps isn't the fastest, isn't the most agile. Kennelly's got all the physical intangibles to play safety, but coming from Grand Valley State, I believe, hasn't really got this like the NFL caliber safety instincts yet. So getting him the reps in preseason on special teams as a single high safety in the Kirby role, that's the most to groom to be a backup to Kirby. Like I'm saying that as perhaps one of the biggest Kirby fans on this side of the Atlantic. I scouted. He was my big first scouting hit for the podcast way back when I was saying, watch this guy from Illinois. He's a really good safety. He's got the ball and sticks, former receiver, just needs to work on the run defense. I've been proven right. It's the highest paid safety in the league, despite what ESPN's ranking says about him. don't think he's a box score junkie like people used to accuse him at Stafford. He's got the run instincts down. He knows he's got ball skills you can't really teach anyone else. There's a reason why he's breaking all these records we haven't seen since like Ed Reed and that. So having someone who, if Kirby goes down for anything, someone that can come in and play that role to 60% of that ability, perhaps doesn't get the ball production, but can still cover deep, play the sort of single high looks that we like to do. So we run cover 2, second most amount in the league last year, continuing that on in our scheme. Having someone that can back up Kirby in that role if he does go down will be valuable because we don't really have that, because Maddox can maybe do it, but doesn't have the athleticism. Jackson can do it because he's in at Georgia, doesn't have the athleticism. And the other guys that are there, they're more branch prototypes rather than Kirby prototypes. So I'm really looking for Kennelly to show me enough to at least keep him around in the practice squad to be that backup to Kirby if Kirby goes down. Because if Kirby does go down, we don't have someone to back him up, our defensive secondary scheme has to completely change. We have to go to more zone, more cover 2, more quarters looks, which will mean different things to our corners. They'll have to play off more. They won't be able to play as much man. The linebackers probably have to change how they're playing, which means that the defensive line has to change how they're playing because they're having to the corners will have to will have less time to cover. So the defense line got to get there sooner. Losing Kirby could be the sort of what's called the Jesus nut on a helicopter, where if that nut comes to us on a helicopter, that's going down. Kirby is that right now for us, so we need a backup for him, and that could be Kennelly.
Okay. What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, this is another interesting position group for me, just because, of the 5 safeties that made the team last year, Branch Joseph and Lauren Strickland, actually, if he's not on the team, Brandon Joseph's not on the team anymore. So the roster spots are there, and it's going to be one of these guys. Is it Dan Jackson? Maurice Norris, you can't count him out. He was here last year. He had the reps at special teams. As Ash already spoke on, Ian Kennelly, somebody that's local to us in Grand Valley State, so somebody that we're kind of rooting for, small town, everything. It's wide open. The chance to earn a roster spot is going to be there for all of these guys. They're just going to have to play for it. And I mean, that's best case scenario for me. When you switch around for the wide receiver group, and it's like, well, how great would you have to play to even open up a spot? That's not the case for a safety. I mean, exactly who you're up against right now. I won't speak as much as Ash did because I'm not as knowledgeable as far as how Kennelly is going to look if he had to back up Kirby Joseph. But you are correct that if something happened to Kirby, we're not going to have that kind of ball hawk back there anymore. We don't have that prototype type of player. I don't know that any of them are going to be that way. Does Avonte Maddox slip into free safety and do that same kind of thing? Probably not, but that would probably be who, in my opinion, who we would lean on if something like that were to happen. Last year when you saw Norris and Strickland on the field, it was like, God, could things get any worse right now? It just, Maurice Norris played 1 defensive snap last year, and I want to say it was a 4th down. It was like a crucial 4th down where we had just given up a penalty or something like that. It was in the red zone, and then I think it was Norris and Strickland were the safeties on the field. It's like, my God, like, what are we doing right now? It was just like a nightmare watching it happen. Yes. So, I mean, obviously you want to avoid situations like that. You're hoping both of these guys had a full year in the system. So maybe Strickland and Norris look good. Dan Jackson, you hear so many positive things, and that he's going to be a special teams contributor right away. That's probably his pathway to getting a head start over the other ones. But, it's going to be a battle. Yep. Where's your head at here, Jason?
Yep, I'm with you. So it's much like you mentioned with the linebackers, it's the depth issue, right? Like, we're fine at the top. We're fine with our starters. If we're miss anybody, then we start to get a little worried. And the depth here is even scarier than it is at linebacker, especially when we get Malcolm back. So we're hoping that we get we develop some. I would not be surprised that another veteran safety ends up on, depending on how these guys look. Out of any of these groups, I would not be surprised to see a veteran safety get signed if no one's showing out and the lines start to get a little worried. Especially at the beginning of the year, we need to have someone that if, God forbid, Kirby or Brian went down, that we could just rely on to be in the right spot. It's not going to be easy to replace Kirby. He's all pro for a reason, right? He has ultimate epic ball skills, right? And what's developed better is that he's learned to channel that and still be in the right position and to trust his instinct. A lot of that probably came with experience, tape study, just learning to be an NFL player. You're right. He looked like early in his, his freshman campaign, his rookie year, he looked like he could, he took the ball away from Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, rookies like intercepted him 3 times. He could take the ball away, but there were times where he was out of position. That happened. That's happened less and less, and that's why the passer rating against him was, I think, one of the lowest in the league, if not the lowest in the league as a safety. And he led the league in interceptions for a reason, right? He's just in the right spot. And we would not have won that 49ers game, regardless of what that game meant or anything or not. He flipped that game, and that's what an interception can do. And so, and Brian Branch, he may be arguably the better safety of the two. It just depends, but they're both different, right? Brian Branch he is a true switchblade. He could be played all over the field. He could be a nickel. I bet you could put him at outside corner and he could hold his own there if he needed to in a pinch. I bet you could play out there. I mean, he wouldn't embarrass himself. But I want to see Branch more in the box. I'm hoping that we could truly have him we got a Meek up for nickel, and I'm hoping we could just put Branch all over the field. And then I want to be able to see him. It's a guy that can rush the passer. He can get at the quarterback. He just needs to get home with it, right? And Aiden, again, is going to be a key to unlocking that because the attention is going to be over there. And we're going to forget that Brian Branch can come free because he's going to line up on the inside over the slot. So we'll see how it goes. But we're kind of running long, right, Jacob? So what do you want to end on? We went through the whole roster. We had some questions at the end. What do you want to end on?
I think we pretty much touched on everything, right? I mean,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about special teams in honor of Ash and his Hogan Hatton jersey?
We have to talk about special teams, but I think we're going to end it on there. But Ash, so we got Jack Fox, Jake Bates, Hogan Hatton. You talk about special teams. If you don't hit on the question I have, then I'm going to ask you a question, and then we're going to probably wrap. But we got to ask Ash that we didn't ask him at the beginning of the podcast, like the quarterback question, Jacob. We kind of skipped over that. I think we were so excited to get to talking, so we can't let him get away for that. So
right
hit on special teams first, Ash, and then we'll end on your Lions fandom when it began.
Special teams for the first time probably since roughly when I started watching the Lions. It's pretty set, isn't it? We've got a long snapper who we can trust, and he can get better. Like I remember scouting him for the podcast again, Idaho. He got safety blocking a punt. He got safety from snapping a punt, going to tackle the punt returner, knocking the ball loose, and it went out the end zone. He got a safety like that, and got a touchdown doing the same again, forcing the fumble on a punt, ran it in, and he's got linebacker experience. So long may he continue. May he be the new Don Wilbach. May in 20 years' time we look back and say there are three things certain in life: death, taxes, and Hogan Hatton. Jack Fox, well, I hope he enjoys his 3 year of life that he's got now from Jared Goff. Hopefully doesn't drink it on the sideline, when he's just having to sit there because we're not having to punt. Like he could probably improve his COD scores, rival Kyler Murray. And then Jake Bates, well, he doesn't have to worry about selling bricks anymore. Now he just needs to, he just needs to worry about making enough field goals and playing well enough for us to extend him next year. So then he can pay alimony to the Levi Stadium field, because I think there's a couple of children going to be born in a couple of months. The love child of the grass and Jake Bates, that poor guy. Why did have to cut to that twice on the TV coverage? But I'm happy with all our special teams. I know obviously Khalif's going into his final years of our punt returner, kick returner. If Craig is off the roster, who takes that up? Is it one of the UDFAs? God knows. But I'm pretty happy with special teams, and thank God I probably won't have to break out my top 32 long snappers in the league list that I had to make last year for the podcast, because that took me ages.
Oh man, that was great. The Jake Bates thing. Now, Jacob, you could think you say that for the end, because Jacob has just gonna be picturing Jake Bates the whole time now, and he wouldn't be able to concentrate. So I'm glad you waited to the end to talk about that. My quick question that I wanted to ask you, because you didn't hit on it, should there be another kicker in camp? I know Jake Bates is the guy. I'm not saying he's not the guy, but should there be another kicker in camp?
Honestly, I'd say no, because at this point, I know obviously our roster's pretty full as it is. I know we're using the IPP pathway for Hassanine, so we're getting a free roster spot there. But I think Bates showed enough last year for us to have faith in him and use that roster spot that we could use for an extra kicker to batter him out elsewhere, be it safety, edge potentially if we aren't happy with how things are in camp, and the asking price for a certain person who's dating a Detroit Raptor and has a nephew on the team, that comes down low enough, maybe we could get him back, or things aren't looking good in the interior offensive line and we just need to sign someone else there just to add a bit more competition, a bit more starting quality there. Being Brandon Scherf still on the free market, I believe. I think that's better used there than bringing in someone to battle Jake Bates that might rattle his confidence, and then we're back into that cycle of having to go 3 games with a kicker, and they're not doing well, so we'll cut them. I'll bring the Riley Patterson, and then we'll play the Pittsburgh Steelers late in the season, and Kirby's picked off Aaron Rodgers, and all we need to do is make a field goal, and oh God, is that Ryan Sotozo coming back out? I'm having flashbacks here. Trust in Bates, I think. Just trust in Bates. It will all work out.
All right, Jacob, any special team thoughts from you, or are you still just distracted by Houston Texans field?
No, but I will second. I mean, it's nice to know that they're fully, there's no questions there. I mean, I'm on the fence about whether we get another kicker or not. I know last year we did not. There's also a lot of questions about whether he was going to be the guy, and we don't have those questions anymore. If you have another guy in camp, though, and then he starts missing kicks or something happened, you don't want that kind of distraction either. So, I mean, he handled it last year. Okay, I think you might as well just let it rip and just let him go and, handle all the kicking in the preseason for us, too.
The only reason I could fathom why we don't want to have another kicker is if you're trying things out of kickoff and you're constantly having Jake Bates do it. Like, if we're trying to coverage things, not necessarily like where the placement of kicks or whatever, you don't want to wear out Jake Bates. I trust Phip. He has a plan. And I think ultimately when you're looking at, is the roster spot more important than having a backup kicker? Obviously the Lions think so. And even last year, after Badgley goes down, we didn't even bring in another kicker. And I just don't, if we didn't do it last year, I just don't see we're doing it this year, unless there's a worry about wearing Jake Bates out. But I don't think that that's going to happen. So, all right, Jacob, before we wrap up, why don't you ask your question to Ash, since I forgot. It's my fault. I forgot at the beginning. We talked about it. We talked about it before, and
there you go.
Yeah, it was my fault.
We talked about it. We go live. Jason already forgets.
Yeah,
there's the old age coming through. I already know the answer to this, though, based on his answers throughout the rest of this. But we usually ask this to everybody that we have on. When you first became a fan of the Lions? So think about when you first started really caring. You really, were into it week in, week out. Who was the quarterback of the team when you first became a fan?
Unfortunately, it's the boring answer of number 9 himself, Matthew Stafford, because started being a fan in 2014, started really caring in 2015, 2016. Well, even thinking back to it now, and this is, again, going to bring back some memories. I remember playing American football with my friends at school at lunchtime, and when I was at receiver, I was going, I'm Kenny Golladay, I'm Kenny Golladay. And then going to cover people, I was going, I am T's Table, I am T's Table. The second statement's probably more true than the first in terms of my footballing ability, but, people can dream, right? But yeah, it was Stafford, 24 and 2015, the start of the dark time, shall we say, and then lest we forget about Jeff Driscoll and David Blau and the money stealer himself, Chase Daniel. I hope he's enjoying making even more money with this podcast now.
Nice.
So I guess the probably the more interesting question than that, because your Stafford answer is how did you land on the Lions? Because I don't know the answer to this. So tell me how you landed on the Lions.
So again, it was probably 2014. And Madden Mobile, remember that was actually a good game back then. It was more like the Madden you get on your games console. You could actually do like play through the seasons, and Ultimate Team was a bit more of a regular thing rather than, oh, here's 102 rated Patrick Mahomes who can throw from one end zone to the other. And that's the starting card in the game. Have fun. Back then, when it was good, me and my friends at school would have like a little league. And back then I was torn between the Lions and the Steelers because, well, I'm originally from Birmingham over here in England. It's kind of like those two cities, but probably more similar to Detroit. And I like the logo and that and the colours, because Birmingham, former industrial heartland, looks at poorly here. So I made the joke earlier about how the Brummie accent what I have over here is voted as being less intelligent than being mute. We are really looked down upon in the same way that Detroit has been in America over recent years. Former industrial heartland, famous for making cars. So Birmingham was the home of Jaguar Land Rover and Jaguar Land Rover and Rover and British Leylands and all these car companies. We also made Spitfires and all the planes for World War II over here. And we're famous for music. So Black Sabbath, ELO, Jeff Lynne, Duran Duran, Dexys Midnight Runners, all these kind of artists all came from Birmingham. So all these like little amalgamations, and then the fact that my English football team, my beloved Aston Villa, which hopefully you can just about see there, flew in the logo, lying on the thing. It just seemed like a match made in heaven. Started watching it, and obviously that was back when it was Calvin and Stafford and Golden Tate, the prime time of the defense as well. And then a certain playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys happened, and I felt that familiar pain. I was all too familiar with my beloved Aston Villa throwing away games out of nowhere off the backs of referees. And I was like, this is the team for me. I know this pain. I recognize this pain. And now, all these years later, I'm in really deep, obviously, doing the podcast of been to Detroit last year for the draft. Was fortunate to meet up with Jeremy and Morgan and Dan Pasky, who's a big guy in the Detroit community as well. All there. Even managed to wangle being that, managed to get our way onto CBS Detroit and got interviewed on there as well. So we're really in deep now. You're probably going to have to cut open my chest and prise out my heart to tear the Detroit Lions out of it at this point. So I'm here for the long haul.
And
That's awesome.
I love hearing that. We've lived it. Jake and I have lived it. You've lived it from afar. Doesn't matter. We're all Lions fans, and we love it. Ash, you've been awesome on this podcast. We definitely want to have you back at some point if you'll have us back. Why don't you tell us, a little bit about your podcast in case some of our listeners aren't familiar, and when they can catch you and where they can get you.
So I'm part of Raw the Lions UK. I was kind of lucky in the start when it started up. It was during COVID times when a couple of my friends that I've met through the podcast now basically were annoying their partners just talking about American football. Like, surely you can find someone to talk to this about. So I started the podcast, and then I found out about it. I was always in the Twitch comments, putting news in, discussing things. And one day I annoyed them enough that they're like, why don't you come aboard and be part of the podcast? And now, nearly 3 years later, I'm a frequent host there. So we have usually 4 podcasts a week during the regular season. So Monday, post-game breakdowns, we discuss things. Wednesday, college show, and hosted usually by my friends Anthony and Ryan. Thursday, game previews. Then time for the games. Me and Matt jump on a Zoom call, put them on, and basically commentate it for everyone, because the coverage of the NFL over here in the UK is not great at all. Like, it's focused very much on the big teams. So quite a lot of the clothing brands over here that sell NFL stuff don't sell Lions gear, but they sell Chicago Bears gear. Always makes me sick when I go into my clothing stores and see that. And then the commentary is very dumbed down. It's obviously aimed to bring people into the game, but for people who know about it and just want to hear proper commentary, Matt offer that. And then I also we also clip it up and put it on TikTok. So there's some really funny reactions. So the first time I ever did it was the Kansas City game, where Brian Branch obviously picked 6 Patrick Mahomes. Of reactions for that are hilarious all these years later. And then I sometimes, when I get time, sit down as well and write little articles as well. So I did one a couple of years ago about the defensive scheme, which is why I was able to talk about it so much. But I also do game previews, like, here's 5 battles I'm looking at. So like Taylor Decker versus Rashawn Gary. This is why Decker's got the advantage. This is why Gary's got the advantage. Stuff like that. So if you ever want to laugh, and usually for now it's on a Monday evening, so 7:30 our time, so about half past 1 Eastern. I think I'll have to check with. We usually tweet out anyway our socials, but we usually on, and we'll laugh. We try and balance British humour with analysis of the game, and then just loads of random excursives. Like, we had a 2-minute brief interlude about helicopter films halfway through the podcast today. So if you're a fan of Blue Thunder and Airwolf, we're the podcast for you.
All right, Ash, before we sign off here, I just want to tell you, we've had the most comments out of this is the most comments we've ever had during our live. So you brought the people. I want to thank Dan, who's been chatting throughout here. I don't know how to pronounce this. Contrapastin. I don't know how. Maybe that's some.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it? Or okay.
Yeah.
Great comments mentioning about getting Frank and Tate together. Fishing, because you see the picture recently of Tate with the shark. So
Yeah.
obviously that would be awesome. But we were kind of really busy with the podcast, but there was tons of comments on there. I really appreciate everybody's out there. There's some funny ones. If I have time, I'll pick some out and we'll tweet them out because they were great. So for Ash Soden, Jacob Litton, I'm Jason Harwood. One thing to say, right, guys? Go Lions.